Why do you say that story structure is not a conceptual model?
Oh, well, I think that story structure is frequently taught by story analysts, and conceptual means intellectual. It's a conceptual model, as opposed to how I see story structure as an experiential model. And if you've ever read that book, I think it's called On Death and Dying by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, she identifies the 5 stages of grief. I think they're denial, depression, anger, denial, acceptance, and bargaining in no particular order. In the same way, there's 5 stages of grief. There seems to be a series of stages that the human animal always goes through in their journey toward transformation. And so when I'm working with writers, I think that this is a really organic way to explore story structure. So if you look at the protagonist's journey, I think of it as there's 13 sort of stages or story points. There's the in Act 1. There's the establishing the world. There's setting up the world, and very early on, there's the protagonist's dilemma. And we understand the dilemma. It's personal to the protagonist, but it's universal to the reader. So, like in Romeo and Juliet, does true love exist? And I don't want to live if true love doesn't exist. That's the dilemma. And then there's the inciting incident. Something happens that sets the story in motion. And that leads to the opposing argument where the dilemma becomes apparent, and that leads to a decision. So notice these are experiences. Decision is an experience. Temptation is an experience. Suffering, surrender, these are all experiences. They're not feelings. So sometimes writers will confuse experience with feeling. We're not interested in characters' feelings particularly. It's actually kind of meaningless. But what we are interested in is the experience they're going to, which can contain a whole host of feelings. So that's what I mean by it.
What is the wildness of our imagination? And didn't you say earlier that sometimes it needs to be reined in?
No, I don't think I ever said that. I don't think the wildness of your imagination needs to be reined in, but I think what you're talking about is that it needs to be, I think the process of building a story is you always have to bring your passion and your wild mind to it. But when you're saying reined in, I'm talking about marrying it to the rigor of story structure. Okay, so our job is to distill our ideas to their nature. Everything you imagine belongs in your story when you distill it to its nature. So I'll give you an example. Let's say Sally lives with her parents, and she lives in the garage above she lives above the garage, and then she takes and you're writing the story and you go, oh, she's going to take a job in Ohio. She's going to take this job offer and she's going to move from Los Angeles to Ohio. Well, I'll ask the writer, why do you make the choice that she moved to Ohio? And they'll go, well, because I grew up in Ohio. I go, okay, so now you've got a story where you're exploring a mother-daughter relationship. And the mother's in Los Angeles and the daughter's in Ohio. So is this a movie where they just constantly have phone calls? And they go, oh. And so what's the story really about? Well, the story really is about the daughter's individuation from her mother. So she could move next door, she could move across town, the story really is about the daughter leaving the nest and what happens to this relationship as a result. That's what I mean by you want to distill your ideas to their nature. Not about Ohio, it's about leaving the nest.
Does it matter, let's say in this situation, if Sally's 21 or if she's 41?
Of course, everything matters. Everything, I think this whole process is about making choices and holding them loosely. All right, so let's say you go, so you have to make a choice. You have to go, all right, Sally's 21. And then as you continue to investigate the story, you go, wait a second, I think that she has been living with her parents for far too long, and now she desperately wants to get married and start a family before it's too late. Well, 21, I don't know. I think she needs to be 41 to fully exploit this premise. So the more you stay connected to what you want to express, the more creating a story becomes a dialogue. The story, really think about creating a story as your ideal reader is sitting in the corner asking you questions. You know, why is she 21? Is that the best choice? That's why I say story, your characters, they're not real people. They're functions of your dramatic question. And so the more you inquire into the world of your story, the more the characters become who you need them to be in order to fully exploit your premise.